Oh, this is an introduction and demo video for the web app created by Emily Smith, Frankie Logan, and Katie Slack. It is titled Riparian Vegetation Along the Rio Grande Corridor Over Time.
This web app is about, or displays the importance of riparian ecosystems, and really discusses how important those are to New Mexico. I have listed a couple of reasons why they're so important, and especially because they are sensitive to climate change. And really the point and motivation of this whole research is to bring attention to that severe issue, and display how or if they are impacted by carbon, a major climate change factor, over time. Our target users are New Mexicans, as this research is directly impacted and was researched in and research using New Mexico's various sources. We're also hoping that researchers can find a lot of value in this to conduct further research in this area, as well as environmental professionals and then students and educators. So we really want this to be used as widespread as possible, so everybody is on the same page about why these riparian areas are so important. We primarily got our data from the Bosque Ecosystem Monitoring Program through UNM, which if you'd like to learn more about that, please go to bemp.org. There's tons of information. And then we also got some data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, which especially we used for carbon data, whereas vegetation, precipitation, and so on was from BEMP.
All right, so let's look at a demo of our map. So over here, you can see that we have our map on the left-hand side. On the right, we have a short paragraph describing the implementation of the data by the developers, kind of explaining the symbols' size and color and how those values were used. Down below, we have supplemental line graphs. So these are static. The top one is showing vegetation in our time span, which is 2000 to 2015. The middle one is showing precipitation, and the bottom one is showing carbon emissions. Over here underneath the map, you can see a paragraph discussing our motivations. Contact us. So we have our personal websites and email, and then down here we have citations, which are going to link to our literature, our data sources, and the code used. So getting into the actual map. Here you can see that we are using point data. So our data is from BEMP, which was mentioned earlier. Each BEMP site is going to have values for each species of vegetation. So the developers went ahead and added those all together to create one vegetation total for each site per year. So that is represented by the size of these circles. So just looking at this circle, let's go ahead and go through, and you can see how it's changing. It's getting larger, smaller. The additional circles that you're seeing are all of the sites that BEMP has added. So it might be easier to kind of zoom in. So let's look at this one for the rest of the next 5 years. You can see it's fluctuating. So that fluctuation is tied to the vegetation cover value that I discussed earlier. If you're curious about what this value is, you can click on each symbol and see that it is this value under total vegetation. So up top, you can see we have site name and the year. So the other thing that you'll notice is dynamic in this map is the color of each symbol. So that is related to the precipitation values also collected by BEMP. So the same treatment was done here. There weren't multiple species, so it's just one value, but the precipitation was totaled for each site per year. You can see on this legend that the darker the blue, the greater the precipitation value. And if you're curious about that value, again, you can click on the pop-up and see the precipitation. So you can pan and zoom around, like I said earlier. You can play through this, you can pause, you can manually click between years. Sometimes I like to slide it around very quickly. I think it makes the variation a little bit more noticeable. And you can also use these buttons. So the last bit of information that we've provided on this map are these four vegetation species. So these are going to be the most populous species collected by BEM with their coverage estimations collected by BEM for the Rio Grande Corridor and Riparian vegetation. They are the Cottonwood, the Russian olive, the New Mexico olive, and the salt cedar. So if you're curious about these trees and are about, you can follow this link here to go to our page, which discusses these trees, or you can come over here and click trees on the navigation bar. So you can see over here, we have descriptions with both the scientific and common name. These descriptions just discuss a little bit about the trees as well as if they're invasive or non-invasive. We also have some photographs so that they can be recognized, as well as just to kind of understand a little bit more about this vegetation. Our sources and image sources are here if you want any more information that isn't provided or are curious about the photographers. So that is the demo.
And then plans for further research, we'd like to look at different carbon dynamics with plants, different invasive and non-invasive species, as I mentioned, that did play into the different species that we featured with our tree pages. And then as well as looking at more abiotic factors such as temperature, salinity, urban growth, etc. So we have a lot of places to expand this research into even a greater amount. So we'd like to thank Dr. Yang for her guidance and support, our fellow classmates for their support as well, and all of our data and code sources for really helping this project come to life. Here we have all of our contacts again, so you can reach out to us with questions. And then on the actual URL to our apps, you can look at it for yourself.